on the people of this city. We're going to continue to do our job in this administration, but these are extremely challenging times. And as I left Washington, D.C., I did not leave with optimism. I left with the cold reality that help is not on the way in the immediate future. It is going to be, at this moment, it's going to be up to New Yorkers and this administration to continue to navigate this challenge that we're facing.
Hello, family, and welcome back to another episode of Journey to Harmony. I'm your host, Richard Harmon. Today I want to talk about how the mayor of New York City, as well as other mayors around the country's recent trip to Washington, D.C. will affect all of us as a nation. So the migrant crisis that we're all aware of has been overwhelming cities around the country. These cities such as D.C., Chicago, New York City, and the likes have all declared national emergencies as they are having issues with so many people who are flooding into their cities. As recently, we all know the services have been cut in New York City, as well as a lot of money has been spent in terms of building out and preparing a place for these people to live. New York City has received over 150,000 migrants in the last, I believe, 18 months, and more continue to pour in. So what happened recently was the mayor of New York City ended up going with a coalition. So New York, again, is the largest city in America, the most powerful city in America. They, along with other cities around the nation, Denver, Texas, people in Dallas, different things like that, they went to D.C. for a chance to speak with Congress about needing federal funds. And what they received was something that was not exactly what it is that they expected. I'll go ahead and play a video here. We'll watch a little bit of this. If it's your first time joining, please click that like button. And here we go.
I was in Washington, D.C. To meet with our congressional leaders and to meet with the White House. And I wanted to take the opportunity at the White House celebration for the holiday season, because I knew I would have a gathering of lawmakers, mayors from across the country. And I was able to speak with the mayor of Chicago and leaders from Massachusetts and others. And we're seeing the same thing across the entire country. Our residents are weary, our residents are angry, our residents are seeing the impact of the migrant and assignment seeker issue, how it is taken away from the resources that should go to the day-to-day services of running the city. We did not walk out from D.C. with any level of optimism that anything is going to drastically change. It is clear that for the time being, this crisis is going to be carried by the cities. Here in New York City, as you know, we had a very painful November plan that we had to produce, and now we're looking forward or in the direction of how do we address the $7 billion budget deficit that we have to address in January. And these men and women behind me who are service providers in some way or another, they see firsthand of what these cuts are doing and will do. This is not the budget we want to pass. The budget we wanted to pass clearly invested in children and families and those who are in need. We are at an untenable situation right now, and it is painful for us. It is painful for the city, and I think that you see it being reflected in the polls. It is because our federal government actions have taken a toll.
All right, family, so perfect. There we see that the mayor of New York City spoke about his trip and what he expects now for the cities of America to deal with. This is a few things that is important, right? So as Mayor Adams went to Washington, D.C. to talk to the Congress about this particular issue, it wasn't only the mayors that were watching. So the governor of Texas has been sending busloads of migrants to these different various cities. And his intention was to send these migrants to these cities and force the Biden administration to act. And he expected that after, these cities got overwhelmed after a point in time, that these people would eventually send some money. They'd close the border and things will move on from there. This message that was given by Mayor Adams was not just a message to the New York City, but it was a message to the entire United States. that the cities of these particular areas have been left on their own, and they're going to deal with this by themselves. What does them dealing with this by themselves look like? They're going to be required to house migrants. They're going to be required to feed migrants. And what's happening right now is that additionally, just after that, the comptroller, the person who's in charge of accounting and financing and budgeting for the city of New York, has removed the emergency powers that were given to Mayor Eric Adams. So now he's no longer able to just make decisions that will help to alleviate some of the issues. So people are just going to continue coming. There's a message that stated there were almost 3,500 migrants that were arrived just last week in New York City. So you're going to see an overflow that is continuing to happen. And as people continue to push through the border, you can expect that the governor of Texas to continue to push even further. How does this affect everyday citizens? If 150,000 people were overwhelming the city's resources, what would 300 or 400,000 particular migrants do to the system of New York? And this is what we can expect. At 3,500 migrants per week, that is up over 150,000, which would make it around, above 300,000 total. There's not any room right now for people. So we're going to see a complete overflow in these coming months as the springtime arrives, and it's going to be a serious issue. The comptroller removing the powers of the mayor in terms of dealing with the situation is going to slow any type of response and make sure that even more people are going to end up on the street. As no resources are available, we can expect crime to rise. And as crime rises, we can expect those who are tax-paying citizens to begin looking for other places where they are to live. So how does this affect those of us who live in suburban neighborhoods? So for New York City again is the largest city in America with, I think, over 12 million people who are living in the city limits. If you have 10% of that, 15%, 20% decide that the inner city, they no longer have good resources for schools, which are already poor. They no longer have good resources for police officers who will continue to quit as crime rises, and they no longer have any other things to offer. People will get up and they will move to these areas. So areas that are already high in cost will continue to rise in cost, and it's going to be something that we're going to see very drastically, very quickly. For those who are wise and those who watch this, it's not just New York City. This is all around. If you live in Denver, if you're in Chicago, if you're in DC, um, Mayor Adams' message just now was a call to all cities that you have a problem that's coming and there's nothing that's going to be done from the national government. While these cities have accepted and stated that they were sanctuary cities, the biggest issue is the fact that the border is open and there's no restraint that is being given to it. And the response, again, that Mayor Adams has spoken about is that nothing will be done about it in time to come. We can expect that this flow will continue to increase, if not even, it will continue to move forward and increase as as a threat of Donald Trump coming back into office becomes more of a reality. People will those who are thought about going to the border, as we saw with the 2020 election, that the rate of people coming were so increased because they heard about Donald Trump preparing himself to lock up the border. And so in the same way, can we expect what is going to happen here in the springtime? There's going to be a huge influx of people, and many people who are leaving these areas like New York and Chicago, who went there and are experiencing the cold. By the time the springtime comes around and it's no longer cold, it is going to be an absolute flood of people just moving into these areas. I believe by the springtime in America, we're going to see a huge change. This does not include the war that's going on in Israel and the issue of all of these natural resources that are yet to be seen. We can expect, as more people are arriving and less production is happening due to a recession we're walking into, we can expect that the cost of everyday goods will increase as more people are chasing after less and less goods. Additionally, we can expect the cost of everyday items that we want to purchase will continue to rise. I'll go ahead and play a video here. We'll talk a little bit about this particular issue that was faced with Mayor Adams. We'll come back from there and we'll close it out.
4 after the city controller Brad Lander strips Mayor Adams of his emergency powers to approve contracts related to the migrant crisis.
Fox 5's Morgan McKay joins us now in studio. And Morgan, the mayor says that it's going to be hard to give migrants the services that they need.
He did, Steve, Natasha. And Mayor Eric Adams' administration says that they need this capability to act quickly, especially with more migrants arriving every week. Just last week, more than 3,600 migrants arrived here in the city, a spike that we haven't seen in a while. The comptroller Brad Lander says this won't stop Adams from doing what needs to be done. It will just make sure taxpayer money is being spent appropriately. How it worked before this was under the mayor's emergency powers, his administration could make a deal with an outside contractor for things such as laundry services for migrants, or to rent a small to medium-sized hotel to house migrants. After that, the contract would get sent to the comptroller's office for final approval. However, now, with this clawback, this contract will first have to go to Lander's office for approval before the mayor's office can act. The mayor's administration says this is going to cause significant delays.
This is an emergency that requires sometimes emergency spending, and we don't know how many migrants Texas is going to send us or whoever else.
More than 3,600 migrants arrived in New York City just last week, and Adams officials worry that this spike in arrivals will only continue to grow. Adams took a jab at Lander, saying that he would have hoped Lander's trip to D.C. a few weeks ago to speak with federal leaders about the migrant crisis would have produced more results.
He went to D.C. 20 months later, and he came back with tying our hands. That's just sort of defies logic to me. So I'm a little disappointed that when he turned from D.C., he didn't come back with any real answers on this is a national problem.
Now, Mayor Adams is also headed to D.C. on Thursday. Adams wouldn't give too many details on his upcoming trip, but did admit he still hasn't spoken with the president since late last year.
All right, there it is, guys. You heard it. Mayor Adams has not spoken with the president of the United States since last year. In the midst of all of this stuff going on, you would think that that as the largest city in the world and the leader of that city, that the president would want to know what's going on, want to be involved, and to extend his, his level of how can he help, and his ability to give. For many of us, we see this and we say that we don't want our taxes raised, our taxes used for these dollars. But regardless of what's happening, we all are going to feel this particular issue. Again, as that pours into these cities, there's going to be an overflow that flows into the suburban neighborhoods. And as that overflow comes, many people, I expect again the police officers in the inner cities are going to continue to quit. They're going to beef up security in suburban areas, and eventually, as more and more businesses leave these inner cities, which we can expect that crime will continue to rise, that the attacks and the attempted theft and burglaries will look to move to the suburban neighborhoods. There's not a lot of good that looks from this, and if this is allowed to happen, if this goes on, President Biden wins the election and this goes on for another 4 years, what does that look like? What does that really look like? Please comment below, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good day.